Dealers, is your training struggling? Are you struggling to get your employees to understand how to talk to customers, implement sales techniques, and remember processes? Today, I have a fun and creative way to approach training for difficult concepts that you can implement at your dealership right away. Stay tuned for this episode of Down Payment.
Welcome to Down Payment, the podcast for used car dealers. Prepare to learn something new about the industry that keeps us moving.
Check out all our podcast content on our social media channels. We are at Down Payment Podcast on YouTube, Down Payment Podcast on Instagram, and Down Payment Pod on X. Welcome back. So in this episode, we're going to talk about training, but we're going to talk about it in a real creative way. So we know that training is difficult, and it's very traditionally difficult for the small independent used car dealer. You don't have big training departments. You don't have instructional designers. You don't have in-house experts in training. But training is absolutely so crucial to taming the beast that is the complexity of a used car dealership. We try to drive excellent customer service and seamless processes and good handovers between multiple departments. To make that happen, you have to have training, but training is kind of a difficult thing to conquer itself because bad training is almost more harmful than no training at all. If your training is bland, it's boring, it doesn't reach the audience, it doesn't incorporate into actual practice when people take it, yeah, that's a problem. So in this episode, let's talk about a couple creative techniques to use in training. So much of our training is in the interpersonal communications realm. We have to be able to take a technique and implement it. And it's in this interpersonal context where we're talking to customers or we're talking to other employees. And we have processes and goals and a lot riding on the success of these techniques. So one thing, and this is not necessarily a groundbreaking technique, but it's a great one to use, and I very rarely see it used in dealerships, is the teach back, where you make the student the instructor. And it's powerful because it makes the student truly responsible for the information. So no longer are they a passive learner, but they are using that information for a goal. You provide them information. It might be a process. It might be a policy. It might be a communications technique. When they're responsible for teaching it back, especially to something of an audience, like say a sales meeting, you have a sales trainee responsible for a teach back where they're going to teach the entire sales department some aspect of value-based sales, for example. That teach back opportunity, especially when it's got some stakes attached to it, they're teaching it back to people, some of whom might know that technique better than they do, might have a lot more experience with it than they do. That's super valuable. There's also the value of putting your more junior people in instructional roles. Often they're more malleable, they're more trainable, they're more adaptive, and they may very well be better learners. And so your more junior people, sending them to training, giving them a lot of education and making them responsible for bringing it back to your operation and teaching the rest of their department can be a really good way of building high-level expertise fast in your newest employees. The second technique, now this one is a little more creative, and that is the role reversal. So all too often, we will do role play training in our departments, especially sales. Sales often has always had a lot of role play training where the sales trainee plays the role of the salesperson and they try techniques with a mock customer. Now, for role play training to go well, you have to have some ground rules and you have to understand what the boundaries are and what the goal and objective is. And if those aren't respected, the role play training goes off the rails and it's a terrible learning experience. But if you have a good role play actor playing along with it, you can have some very valuable sales training going on through role playing. What you don't see very often, though, and what can be even more instructive, honestly, is to reverse the role and have that sales trainee play the role of the customer. so that they can see the expert role play actor who should know these techniques very well, be experienced, be the expert salesperson, how they use these techniques you're trying to teach them. Oftentimes, that role reversal in a training can be super powerful and more instructional than them playing the actual role that they will have in real life. So with that, those are 2 easy wins for you. Implement teachbacks in your training and implement role reversals in your role play training. You're going to be doing some creative stuff that no other dealers are doing. With that, we would love to hear your comments about other creative approaches to training that you use at your dealership. And now, go sell some cars. It's been another episode of Down Payment. Check out our podcast on all our social media channels. We are at Down Payment Podcast on YouTube, Down Payment Podcast on Instagram, and Down Payment Pod on X.
Thank you for listening. Down Payment, the podcast for used car dealers, is a production of Meta Financial Services Incorporated.